Hey there, welcome to episode 120 of the Social Business Engine podcast, the podcast where thought leaders from brands, technology companies, and independent thought leaders contribute to your social business strategy to help you get better business results and to positively impact your career. I'm Bernie Borges and your host of the Social Business Engine podcast. On this episode, you are going to meet Shawnee Brown. Shawnee is Associate Director, Global Social Media Strategy at Merck. Shawnee will discuss how Merck Manuals is going through a digital transformation to make the best medical knowledge accessible to more than 3 billion people around the world. This episode is sponsored by Outward Media, Inc., a leader in the direct marketing industry. Later in the show, I'll tell you about a valuable offer from Outward Media. And now, here's my interview with Shawnee Brown, Associate Director, Global Social Media Strategy at Merck. Shawnee, welcome to the Social Business Engine podcast.
Hey there, Bernie. Glad to be here.
Well, thank you for being here. Hey, Shawnee, we met at Social Media Strategy Summit in New York City, my home city. I don't know if you knew that. I grew up there, although a lot of people tell me I never grew up, but I'm from New York City. And I saw you speak on this topic and had to have you on my show because I was really fascinated by it. So, Shawnee, let's begin with just an introduction to Merck because, my listeners may not know who Merck is. So why don't we start there? Who is Merck?
Sure. So Merck is one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world. Merck is global. So the company spans various different countries all over. We provide innovative medicines and healthcare options to people all over. We are in a research and development organization, so we really pride ourselves on the research that we do around different therapy areas and medical conditions. In addition to that, we just recently celebrated our 125th year in existence, so we're really excited about that.
Wow.
And one of
you haven't been there that long, have you, Shawnee?
Oh, no, I haven't. I don't think I would be able to do this podcast with you, Bernie.
Yeah, no kidding. That's amazing. 125 years old. Wow. I didn't know that.
Yes. So we're pretty established. In addition to that, the Merck Manuals, Merck, the company, founded the Merck Manuals back in 1899, which is now has been one of the top-selling medical references in the world. So Merck really prides itself with the Merck Manuals, and this year, in 2016, being able to offer the Merck Manuals for free to everyone, everywhere, around the world. So It is something that we're very excited about doing, and Merck, the company, is very excited about being able to add this offering to its mission to really make sure that people are able to access credible, accurate medical information wherever they are.
Wow. Okay. So the Merck Manuals is a medical reference, and you say it's been around since 1899. So if memory serves me correctly, that's before social media. So this is clearly a document, right? This was, when you say manual that's been around that long, this is a physical manual?
Yeah. So it's actually a very thick medical textbook, hundreds and thousands of pages long.
Wow.
Originally it was given and presented to medical students at the start of their medical study careers.
Okay.
And it was something that medical students really held and took with them. They were able to use it for their study, for their boards, and even once they got out of school and started practicing, this was a reference that many clinicians had been using for many, many, many years.
Wow. Okay. Now, I remember in your presentation, you talk about this concept of you're really working to to close the global medical knowledge gap, and like the why, the reason for wanting to do that. So before we get into the digital transformation of the Merck Manuals, because clearly that's what we're here to talk about, can you explain what you mean by that whole working to close the global medical knowledge gap?
Absolutely. So, we're in a world where information comes to us very rapidly. And, sometimes the information that's out there may not be the right information. So what it is that we're, as consumers, as patients, we're going to the Dr. Googles, we're going online. Whenever we have a health ailment, a stomach ache, a fever, our child is sick, they wake up and they have a sore throat or a sudden rash on their body. And the first thing that we do is we turn to this thing called the Internet. The scary part about that is there's no way to really decipher if that information is actually credible. If the information that you're looking up symptoms for your child or for yourself or for someone that you're taking care of is the right information that you should be following. And the Merck Manuals has over 100 years experience providing that credible sourced information. So we saw this as an opportunity. This is a what we're calling or what we're deeming as a health literacy crisis for patients, for people like you and I. It's a crisis because 88% of adults in the United States are considered to have inadequate health literacy levels, meaning that they don't understand. When they go out there and they're looking up information about their symptoms, they're not really truly understanding what it is, the information that they're getting. And this could lead to increased mortality rates. It can lead to increased healthcare costs. So it really is a crisis in all spectrums. And then the other side of that is the clinician. So the physician is taxed with mulling through tons of medical information on new medical advancements, diagnoses, and treatments. There's a lot of information out there. I think we found in some of the surveys we conducted that, and some of the research that we've done, that there's 150 exabytes of information, and that equals 30 times the number of words ever spoken by human beings since the beginning of time. If you could equate what that is.
Wow.
It's huge. That's a lot of information for our docs to keep up with.
Yeah.
So what you have is you have patients like you and I that don't have the right information, and you have clinicians that have way too much information, and they're time-strapped, so they don't have the time to cut through the clutter and get to what it is that they need. So this is the gap that we've identified, and this is where the Merck Manuals we saw where we could truly make a difference and help bridge that gap.
Yep. Okay. Well, that is fantastic, and that is truly a very worthwhile cause for all the reasons that you stated, and I can relate to that personally. As you said, Shawnee, each of us as people, as consumers, we go online, as you say, Dr. Google, to look up symptoms. In fact, I was even thinking, as I was listening to you, I was thinking about one or two, not recently, but one or two conversations with a doctor where I was in for whatever reason, and I mentioned something, I looked it up online, and I remember her eyes rolling, as if like what I just said didn't make her happy.
Yep. And Bernie, to that point, you bring up a great point, because this is where we also see an opportunity, especially where social comes in, because it's building that relationship between the doctor and the patient. So you and your doc, right? The minute you say to your doctor, I was reading online on the Merck Manuals, most of the physicians out there today have heard of us. They have an affinity to us. So, having your doctor hear you speak of a credible resource like the Merck Manuals that's been around for hundreds of years and that's non-biased and that has over 350 physicians specialized in their own field writing and providing this credible content and medical information for us, I'm sure her eyes would turn the other way, and they would be a little, he or she would be much more ecstatic and excited that that's where you're getting your information from. And you can also begin to have a more knowledgeable conversation with your doctor just based off of the information that you get from the manual.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, and Shawnee, I promise you, the next time I'm in a doctor's office and I go in, first of all, I'll do my homework on the Merck Manuals, and I will mention
that.
That's right.
And
then I'm going to reach out to you and I'll tell you about the experience.
Yeah, please go to our Facebook page and feel free to write on our wall.
Yep, awesome. So let's talk about the digital transformation. Again, the Merck Manuals has been around since 1899. Boy, just using the 18 in my vocabulary is just an odd thing to say. So let's talk about how did you get to the digital transformation, and how's that been going?
That's a great question. They were actually founded in 1889.
89, okay.
And 89, yeah.
Wow. So it's even 10 years older
been around
than...
even longer.
Yeah, no kidding. Wow.
Okay. Exactly. And if you can imagine, so, I talked about this being a thick textbook with hundreds of thousands of therapies and information around treatments for various different conditions, anything that you could possibly think of. It has been a huge undertaking, quite honestly, to digitize all of this information. We engaged an agency, they're called Infusion, and they helped us develop what we like to call a site that is very much flexible in that it will serve specific content to you based on how you search within the site.
Okay.
So it's really meant to tailor the information because there's just so much there to the user,
right.
which adds to the usability and the user friendliness of the site. So in addition to that, the site is currently hosted on a platform called Sitecore, and Sitecore makes that personification, I guess we'll call it, possible within the site because of the functionality of the platform. In addition to that, there are two sites that have currently been migrated to this platform. It is our Merck Manuals site for professionals, which is our original manual, and then our Merck Manuals site for consumers, which came later. I believe it was sometime in the early 90s when the Merck Manuals Home Health book for consumers was published.
Okay.
So those two manuals were our top-selling manuals, and those are the ones that Merck decided to fund, again, to help bridge this medical knowledge gap between the consumer and the physician.
Okay.
So taking all of that information from a textbook and making it digital and online, as I said, was a huge undertaking. However, we've been able to accomplish it in less than a year,
really?
Which is pretty amazing, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And in addition to that, we have more than 10,000 multimedia assets available on the site. So that includes images, that includes quizzes and case studies for the professional, that includes quizzes for the consumer, and videos on different procedures. So a medical student could go to our site and they could get really, really, really rich content on the site that they wouldn't necessarily have been able to get from a printed book. Much more interactive. There's news stories, commentaries from our physicians. So whenever there's a huge medical news study that comes out, or there's breaking news in the medical industry, we have commentary from our featured physicians who may specialize in that area, who provide their perspective on that particular news or topic. So all really, really rich, updated content available now online. And previously, with the textbook version, the books were only being published, I believe it was every 5 years we had a new edition. With the new site, and now that it's digitized, we're able to do that every 3 months.
Wow.
So you're really getting, updated content right at your fingertips by going to our site.
What comes to mind as you describe that, Shawnee, is that, we throw around this phrase digital transformation all the time, but I think in the story that you just shared, that is truly, truly a transformation, as you said, something that's thousands of pages long and updated once every 5 years to something that's updated every 3 months and has, multimedia assets, and just truly a wonderful resource. Where I want to go next in our discussion, Shawnee, is I want to talk about social media and the role that it plays in the Merck Manual. But first, I want to pause briefly for a message from our sponsor. Outward Media Inc. is a leader in the direct marketing industry, providing businesses access to the largest SMB email database for the acquisition of new customers. OMI has a commitment to data accuracy that I find very impressive because it helps you identify your best prospects so that you can generate more qualified leads. In fact, OMI offers a 95% accuracy guarantee on all email data for 30 days. I urge you to download OMI's ebook, The Executive's 15-Minute Guide to Building a Successful Email Marketing Database, to discover the essentials for improving email deliverability. Now, when I read this ebook, I discovered at least 3 things that we needed to address. It's really a must-read for all digital marketers. You can get your copy now at outwardmedia.com/SBE, and you can also find the link to this ebook at our website at socialbusinessengine.com. So, Shawnee, since you've made this digital transformation, and you said it was done in less than a year, which is amazing, what is the role? I mean, you head up social media strategy for the Merck Manual. So, what's the role of social media? Talk about how that has been a platform and a tool to engage, and how you're using it.
Oh, absolutely. So the wonderful thing about this whole digital revitalization of the Merck Manuals is that social media is really the forefront of this push. Because our leadership recognizes the value of social and the ability social has to be able to disseminate information broadly. And that's really what this effort is really about, is being able to get this information out, globally to as many people as we possibly can, and we know with social we can do that. Mm-hmm. So just to give you a little bit of background, so we didn't just launch our social channels with the revitalization of the site. So initially our social channels were created to help promote our textbooks and the sale and the purchase of our consumer edition and our professional edition.
Okay.
And we first launched our channels back in 2012. And what we found is that social really was a great way to not only attract new audiences and new customers to us, but also was a great way to bring together the people who have already had an affinity to our brand and enable them to have conversations with us about the medical industry, about things that they were interested in, about different news and trends right there with the Merck Manuals. And the interesting thing is that even though Merck is in the Merck Manual's name, there are many people out there that don't make that connection automatically. So through social media and through our channels, we have been able to sort of bring Merck to really the center of all of what we've been able to do, or what it is that we're doing through social right now as it relates to our social movement, and making sure that people understand that Merck is behind this good effort of making this medical information available to everyone everywhere.
Okay, excellent. So I'm really intrigued by the fact that you launched in 2012, focused on promoting. And at what point did you actually begin the transition to build awareness for the digital version of the Merck Manuals?
Yeah, so we embarked on that phase of our social media strategy in 2015, early 2015. And so during that time, our strategy was to, our message was going to be different. It was going to go from look out for our new edition and go to Amazon to purchase it, to now you can get the same quality, great information that you've been used to for over 100 years right here online on our site for free.
Wow.
And so we had to, in order to make that message compelling, we had to create a story that went with that message.
Okay.
And really the idea was that to really activate people around that message, we were going to need to create a social movement. So that's exactly what we did. We had to figure out a way that we were going to be able to get people behind us, behind our new mission, right? Our mission changed. It went from, we're this great, credible book that had, sort of a value, a price tag attached to it, to now we are free and accessible to anyone around the world. And so we created a social movement to get people behind us and to help and to get them to want to share this information with not only their colleagues, but their family and their friends. So our social movement really came out of that, out of the whole global medical knowledge gap that I talked about earlier. And we really sort of boiled that down into sort of one, main mission, social mission. And Bernie, if you don't mind, I'll sort of just say that and share that with you today. But really, our social movement is, if you can agree that access to health information is a universal right, then join the Merck Manuals Global Medical Knowledge 2020 movement. Share med knowledge with your family and your friends and or patients so we can all live better, happier lives.
Love it.
Hashtag share med knowledge. Yes?
Can you repeat that hashtag?
Sure. Hashtag share med knowledge.
Share med knowledge.
So that,
Okay. So how did you amplify that story through social and digital in general?
Yeah, so we partnered with a public relations agency who really helped us come up with some key messages around that mission, that movement, that statement that I just shared. And we boiled it down into a couple of different pillars. So we knew we were speaking to the patients, the consumers, and then we also have audiences for professionals. So we had to come up with content, with messaging that would resonate with those two different audiences. And we knew we wanted them to be actionable messages. So we wanted to create messages around what we want people to know, so sharing facts and different stats around the medical knowledge gap. And then also we wanted it to be something that people could share or show to their networks. So we created messages that were actionable, asking people to show their commitment, sharing badges or posting badges on their profiles, and we provided those assets to them through our channels. And then also share, and that's really, the bread and butter of social media. That's really the heartbeat, the soul of these tools, is to get people sharing.
Yeah.
So that was our last and final sort of actionable call to action that we had for people. Share our information. Make sure your friends and family know about the Merck Manuals. Sharing all of our links to different medical topics and conditions and disease areas. So we really sort of started there.
Now, I remember from your presentation at Social Media Strategy Summit that you talked about a relationship that you had in this social amplification strategy with med students, and how that was a part of your social strategy. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Sure. Well, like I mentioned earlier in our interview, Bertie, that really the history of the Merck Manuals is that med students used to get one. Every med student would get a Merck Manual when they started med school. Well, that sort of phased out with the growth of other digital online resources. Up to Date, you may have heard of, is one, and there's some other ones that are similar. And so the Merck Manuals kind of phased out of that. What student wants to be carrying around a 50-pound textbook? So with the big internet boom and that sort of happening, that sort of shift, and we had to find a way through social to connect those dots again with the medical students, and to really get back in front of them without giving them a book, but giving them something else. And what is that we're going to give them? So, one of the things that we know about med students is that, they're buried in work, they're time-stricken, many of them are buried under finances. If you can just imagine, their medical education alone is a huge financial burden for most. So one of the things that really that resonates with them is the fact that we're free, that we're online, that you can access us. And now we just launched our mobile app, which are free as well. So we have these apps available where, a medical student could go right to their phone, which is what they're used to, download our app and get the same information that they can get by going to the website. So, that's really has been our message to them. So the goal is through social is to reach them where they are and to be able to create sort of campaigns that are specific to them. So more recently, we just launched a campaign that's directed to med students around asking them to show us their school spirit. So, it's something that you wouldn't think would come from the Merck Manuals, but again, we wanted to make sure that we were able to speak to the audience that we're really trying to connect with again.
Yeah, so, and it really humanizes your brand by
absolutely
taking that level of enthusiasm and engagement and showing school spirit. It's more than just a medical journal now. It's like, hey, I want to know about your school and how you feel about it. That's that humanizing factor. I love that.
Exactly. And that's definitely a main goal, for that campaign. And just to really, get in front of them and to say, we're here too. We know you have your arsenal of resources and references that are your go-tos, but we want to be included in that arsenal. We want to also be a go-to for you. And so, that's really what we've been trying to do as part of some of the outreach programs that we've been doing with med students. In addition to that, we make sure that, we're front and center at a lot of the different med student association events, so different conferences throughout the year. Historically, the Merck Manuals has been there sort of advertising and promoting the books. Now that we're digital, we're there now, promoting our apps and promoting our website. And, just really tapping into med student focused hashtags and really listening into the conversations that they're already having and, developing strategies to really leverage those conversations and reach them where they are.
Fantastic. Okay. So, Shawnee, we are at a point in the podcast where we're running against the time that I've allotted for each podcast and really for my listener. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to recap our conversation. And this is for the listener who is primarily mobile, and just kind of recap the high points of our conversation. Then I'll ask you to either fill in any gaps or elaborate on anything, or if I misspoken anything, then by all means, please correct me. So we started with just a brief introduction to Merck, one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world. Recently celebrated your 125th anniversary. That's fantastic. And then the Merck Manuals, which launched way back in 1889, is one of the top medical references in the world. Of course, launched as a textbook, hundreds of thousands of pages long, and it was originally presented to med students, as you pointed out. And the whole focus of the Merck Manuals is to really work to close the medical knowledge gap. There's too big of a knowledge gap. Today, you and I, consumers, go on the internet to research, information. However, you can't really discern what's credible. However, Merck Manuals has a long history, 100-plus year history of delivering credible medical information. So the why, the real focus here is the whole health information crisis. You mentioned, if I got this correctly, Shawnee, that 88% of U.S. adults have health information inadequacy. And as you pointed out, that can ripple into the cost of health care. And then on top of that, physicians themselves struggle with just an overabundance of information. You mentioned that there's 150 exabytes of information. I don't remember. I didn't write down what that equivalent is in conversation. I just know it's a lot. But doctors have huge confidence in the Merck Manuals, again, because of its rich history. So the digital transformation was a huge undertaking of the Merck Manuals from print to digital. You engaged an agency to develop a website that tailors the content to the user search. The hosting platform on Sitecore really allows that from a technology standpoint to personify the content delivery, and really what you decided was back in, I think you said, the 1990s, you developed the Merck Manual for consumers, because obviously it was delivered initially for the first number of decades for professionals, but in the 90s you said, let's produce a version for consumers. And, it was digitized in less than a year, which is amazing, truly amazing. More than 10,000 multimedia assets are available on the site. It really provides a very interactive experience, and it can be updated every 3 months, which is contrasted by you updated it every 5 years in the print version. Now, from the digital transformation standpoint, Shawnee, you talked about the role of social media and how it really was in the forefront, because it really enables you to disseminate the information globally. You initially launched your social channels in 2012, focused on promoting the textbook, but you realized that you were attracting a new audience, so you were building a community because of the affinity to the brand. And then in 2015 is when you launched the digital version of Merck Manuals, and made this huge movement. You created a story to create a global social movement with the focus of providing access to health information as a universal right. And I love the hashtag #ShareMedKnowledge. And you've been amplifying the story with a focus on two distinct target audiences: patients, the consumers, as well as the professionals. And just really focused on making it very shareable, and things like badges and that sort of thing, and really kind of back to the roots on the relationship with the med students, and going back to them because they have always had an affinity toward the Merck Manual brand, and they can leverage the fact that it's free, both on the website and the mobile app, and really engaging with them. You talked about the showing the school spirit and tapping into their conversations, and so really have transformed this Merck Manual brand from this over 100-year-old print version of this esteemed medical journal to a digital version that is both for professionals and for consumers, and available for free on the website and on mobile. It's just an amazing transformation. Very few stories that I come across like this, Shawnee, that date back all the way back to 1889. So that's my summary. Please fill in any gaps or elaborate on anything you'd like to.
I think you did a wonderful job recapping this, Bernie. We covered a lot today on this interview. I do want to add just one thing.
Sure.
Medical knowledge is power. Pass it on.
Awesome. Fantastic. Okay. All right. Well, Shawnee, thank you so much for joining me here today on the Social Business Engine podcast. Before I segue into my outro, where can we send people online to connect with you and learn more about the Merck Manuals?
Best way to go is merckmanuals.com.
merckmanuals.com. All right. Well, we're going to have that in the show notes. My listeners know that. Well, I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Shawnee Brown, Associate Director, Global Social Media Strategy at the Merck Manuals. This episode is sponsored by Outward Media, Inc., a leader in the direct marketing industry. Download OMI's ebook, The Executive's 15-Minute Guide to Building Successful Email Marketing Database, to discover the essentials, and I really mean the essentials, for improving email deliverability. Get your copy now at outwardmedia.com/SBE. Now, you'll also find this link on the show notes page for this episode at our website at socialbusinessengine.com. And hey, before I close out the episode, I want to invite you to become a member of our Social Business Engine community. Membership is totally free, and it provides premium content that we only make available to members. Our community is made up of thousands of business professionals whose common interest is using social media strategy, social technology, and social culture to create better business results and to improve their career. It's easy to become a member. Just visit our website at socialbusinessengine.com. Well, that is going to do it for episode 120. I want to thank my guest once again, Shawnee Brown, Associate Director, Global Social Media Strategy at the Merck Manuals. This is Bernie Borges, wishing you continued success on your social business journey.